So, chapter 18 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex is finally here, and it pretty much has Sarada getting controlled by RYU, Kawaki taking his 5th nap in TBV, and also the reveal of Akebi's body. So, we have a lot to discuss, but of course we're gonna start from the top. So the person on the cover for this month is Matsuri, and the title is Only Babble in Your Sleep, which references something that happens later on in the chapter, so let's get into it. So the chapter starts with Sumire heading somewhere, and I know, yes, I'm being very descriptive. But yeah, she seems to be lost in thought, most likely regretting what happened with Sarada. She then enters Amado's lab, which reveals Kawaki pinning Amado to the wall. And of course, this is continuing the conversation they had in chapter 17. Now Sumire is of course shocked by this, so she shouts Kawaki's name, and Kawaki replies saying, "Relax Sumire, I'm totally sane," which of course is something someone totally sane would have to say. He then says that it might look a tad bit violent, but we're just having a talk. "I don't care that you've been tinkering with my body like it's a toy. However," yeah, Kawaki definitely doesn't talk like this, but anyways, he says, "That ends now, I'll decide things from here on. Change my settings, amp up my offensive power to the max. If you don't, then you're of no use to me, and I'll kill you." He then goes on to say, "Look into my eyes. Your soul is stained by the blood of the innocent. Feel their pain." Okay. Never doing that again. He then slightly releases Amado's neck, and Amado starts coughing. He then says, "Choose your answer carefully if you want to keep living." Amado then says, "Only babble in your sleep, Kawaki," and of course this is the title of the chapter. Kawaki's eyes then has this, I don't know, it seems like maybe some light moving inside of it. Of course we'll see this when the anime gets, animated. But yeah, his eye did do something, and he then fell to the ground, sound asleep in his usual ass up, face down position. Now of course Sumire is a bit shocked by this, and she says to herself that it's a failsafe just like with Delta, an emergency shutdown code. Now Amado then says, "You have impeccable timing, Sumire. Can you help me move him?" And of course it seems like she's going to do it. Now I do want to mention again that this was mentioned in chapter 71 that he does have this code, and I'm doing this because I have seen multiple comments saying that this is somehow a plot convenience, or I guess some people forgot that this was mentioned in part 1. Now then skip back to the Sand Village, and we have Mitsuki introducing RYU to the members of Team Shinki. He goes on to say, "Meet Yodo, the girl on the left, and the one with the blade is Araya." Araya then says, "Hi there," but Yodo doesn't say anything. Now, Raya of course notices this because, he's not blind, and he says, "Is this my imagination, or is she totally glaring at me?" Sarada then jumps in saying, "Oh sorry, she's shy. It takes her time to warm up." And Araya then turns to Yodo and says, "Tone it down, Yodo. You're not a kid anymore." But of course, Yodo, having the emotional maturity of a dolphin, decides to continue doing it. And I did mention this in my prior videos because it was so obvious that Yodo was going to spoil this mission because of her simply being emotionally immature, and also this being hinted at multiple times in chapter 17. So yeah, this is playing out at this point. Now then skip over to Konohamaru, and I did not expect this. This is what I did not predict, and you guys will see. So it seems that they've been talking for a minute, and she says, "And that is the situation." And she then asks him, "What do you think?" He then says, "I don't know if I get it completely, but at least you seem to be fine physically, and your color is good." And by the way, color is good just means that her temperature is fine. She then goes on to say, "I have no idea why, but for whatever reason, it seems like I was super nervous. But as we talked, I started feeling more and more normal. How could that be? Maybe that's cause we just met. It's not uncommon." She then says that, "I feel like I'm finally being my true self. I'm really enjoying talking to you." He then says, "I see. I guess that's a good thing." And then, seemingly out of nowhere, she then says, "Would it be okay if I called you Konohamaru-chan?" And we then get a flashback of younger Moegi calling Konohamaru Konohamaru-chan multiple times. Oh, and by the way, chan in Japanese sometimes expresses that the speaker finds the person endearing, though it can be used to address younger people as well. Now then switch over to RYU and Sarada, and he goes on to say, "So where is it? This clue that might lead to Boruto. You said you saw something around here, right?" And this seems to have caught Sarada off guard for some reason because she's like stuttering saying that would be, and we see Sarada's internal dialogue as well, and this is like the crux of how you got him over here in the first place. Like, why wasn't this planned? It's like, this is so crazy to me. Is it that they did plan something but they forgot, or they just didn't plan ahead to this portion of the mission. I don't know. They should have had something to say. I just think that's a bit crazy, you know? But yeah, RYU goes on to activate his iron sand and spreads it across the open. Sarada is like, huh? RYU? What are you doing? He then says, oh this? I'm spreading iron sand around. It's my detection ability. I learned a lot of things using it. He then says, I'm gonna poke around this area a bit. If Boruto is anywhere nearby, I'll find him real quick. But it seems like the sand has the ability to detect intent as well, because when it tries to approach Yodo, it seems like it starts to fidget a bit. And RYU of course notices this. He then goes on to say, what mighty bloodlust you've got, Miss Yodo. I was right about you. Your bloodlust is off the charts. She then tries to gaslight RYU by saying that, don't let it bother you. I'm always like this. All of us ninja are. And of course, it doesn't seem like RYU's taking to this. That's when Mitsuki pops in and says, hey RYU, can I ask you something? The Leaf Village considers Boruto a criminal. That's why we're hunting him down. Why are you guys looking for him? He then says, honestly, I have no idea myself, but he apparently knows too much about stuff, like the thorn bulbs. Now of course, this is referring to the small chocolate fruit looking thing that Hidari transformed into after his body was destroyed by Kawaki. This of course can be used to revive the person that is currently stuck in a tree, so that's why they're going after it. Now of course, Sarada is somewhat of a good actor here, so she's like, thorn soul? And he goes on to say, yeah, a lot of other things too. He has become rather inconvenient for us, so Elder Jura decided to kill him. She then says, hey RYU, maybe we can use one as bait to lure Boruto out. What do you think? But before we get Ryu's answer, we then skip over to Kawaki waking up in Amado's lab. Amado then says, don't flip out Kawaki, let's have a civil talk. I do hear your point. The divine trees are definitely a threat, and I did not foresee their emergence at all. I will have to modify your ability settings to a fully offensive power form in order to stand against them, but only under one condition. He then walks over to what appears to be Delta in some type of tube, and of course this isn't Delta, this is Akebi. He then says, that's not Delta. She's a separate fresh clone body I prepared for Akebi to inhabit, a resurrection vessel. All I need is for you to implant this vessel with karma, and my daughter can be reborn. Resurrection using Akebi's data, which I added to your karma. This will result in her existing in this world once more. I failed at recreating her soul time after time because it's an act permitted only to gods. Every single thing I've done up until this point, it has all been for this. This is my one and only purpose in life. Help me achieve this divine feat, only possible via karma. Please, I beg you, Kawaki. That is it. That is my one condition. Kawaki then goes on to say, I'll say this again. If your revived daughter turns out to be an Otsutsuki, I will kill it, no exceptions. It's so funny here, Kawaki says, I will kill it and not her. That just shows like how he views the Otsutsukis as things to be disposed of and not people. Now Amado then says, in the unlikely event Akebi truly happens to resurrect as an Otsutsuki, fine, you can do as you please, though I'll fight you with everything I've got. And this of course is not a good deal for Kawaki, and I wouldn't take it as well because he's basically saying here that even if she resurrects as an Otsutsuki, he doesn't want her to be killed by Kawaki, right? So he's willing to fight Kawaki even if she turns out to be an Otsutsuki. The reason why this isn't a good plan for Kawaki is because Amado can still put him to sleep even after this. So I don't know, this seems like a bad deal, but it does depend on what Otsutsuki means in this context, because it could be that she's an Otsutsuki like she's the race of Otsutsuki like Boruto is, but she isn't evil per se. But if she is evil, then I think they should dispose of her. But of course Kawaki's just thinking the race itself. He just wants to kill anyone. She doesn't need to be good or bad, it doesn't matter. So I think it depends on the context of course, but you know, we'll see. And I also found it interesting that Kawaki isn't surprised that Amado isn't affected by omnipotence. Now maybe Kawaki is just really perceptive and he just doesn't care really, since, you know, yeah, he's unaffected like Sarada and Sumeri, so big deal, you know. So yeah, that might be what's happening here. So yeah, Kawaki goes on to say, Amado, I can't accept your terms. Powering me up comes first. I'm not interested in creating something that might become a new enemy right now, which makes sense. You don't want a new guy becoming a possible threat when you have to deal with the Shinjus. Amado then says, Kawaki, please, just hear me out. But Kawaki goes on to say, yeah, you know, the sequence of events is the issue. I swear that I will put a karma seal into that clone, on the premise that I might kill her right away, but only after all our current foes are wiped out. Now this part is really interesting because Amado goes on to say, listen Kawaki, you are currently endowed with near immortal defensive and recuperative powers. If I then redirect all of that to offensive power, I can't guarantee your survival. And if those bastards manage to kill you, my dreams die too. And of course, Amado's position also makes sense because, you're gonna send him off to fight these powerful people, which means that Kawaki can simply kick the bucket before resurrecting Akebi. Now, what I found really strange about this is that Amado says that Kawaki has near immortal defensive and recuperative powers, and the reason why this is a bit weird is this really near immortal, whatever that means, defensive power that Kawaki is getting one-tapped by base Boruto that isn't trying to kill him, by the way? And then you have Kawaki in his karma state that is getting two-tapped by Jura, and this is Kawaki in his strongest form. And of course, if Amado disables Kawaki's limiters, that would then redirect the power back to his offense, which would of course weaken his defense. So at this point, what we're seeing currently is Kawaki in peak defensive form, even beyond his limits, by the way. So it's not like Kawaki is max to the top of what he can do, he's beyond that at this point. But he's still getting one tap by base Boruto and two tap by Jura. So at this point, if he does decrease this and Kawaki goes into a fight with Jura, he would likely die from a single punch. So I'm not sure what this immortal defense is. Maybe it just prevents Kawaki from getting pierced because this clearly doesn't protect against concussive force. So I guess we'll see how that one plays out. But yeah, Kawaki then goes on to say that what I want isn't a guarantee of survival, it's the potential to kill them, which of course is in direct opposition to what Amado wants, because what Amado wants depends on your survival, Kawaki. That's what he's saying. But yeah, it goes on to tell Amado that he should quit worrying about his welfare, and he's telling him to make him an even bigger and badder monster than them. He then tells him to use any means, whether scientific or otherwise, to make him stronger beyond his limits. The Divine Trees, Code, and Boruto. You will only reunite with your daughter after I slaughter them all. Now I do want to clarify that Amado's plan to resurrect his daughter isn't really resurrecting his daughter in the traditional sense, because the Karma Seal can't bring someone back from the dead, as in dead, If it could, Ishiki would still be alive. So Akebi's soul, the real one, has already moved on to the afterlife. What Amado is doing at this point in time is creating a clone of Akebi that also has her personality and her mannerisms. By the way, this is a function of karma that was mentioned by Amado himself in chapter 46, that it also has the ability to create duplicate personalities, which is also why it's erased from other vessels when the Otsutsuki resurrects. So I just want to make it clear, and I'll probably just do a full video on it because there's more to it here with the Otsutsuki angle, but this isn't bringing Akebi's soul back from the afterlife similar to Edo Tensei, it's instead creating a clone of Akebi that also has her personality, unlike Delta. But yeah, we then switch over to Konohamaru blowing the mission with Matsuri. So she goes on to say that this is the best day of her life, to get to talk so much to Konohamaru, and she continues to call him Konohamaru-chan. She then says, well, not that I've been alive very long, but still, I'm so happy. Konohamaru-chan will, and before she finishes, asking the question here, Konohamaru interrupts and says, wait, hold on. I'm so sorry, but could you not call me that? She then says, why? What's wrong? And he goes on to say there's only one person who calls me that. So, you see, it surprises me too, but it's giving me goosebumps. You don't mind, do you? Calling me just Konohamaru. But that's when Matsuri's expression changes completely and she looks really angry. And she says, only one person? And who is that? He then starts to panic and says, oh, don't read into it too much. But she's not having it, of course. She says, you wouldn't happen to be referring to Kazamatsuri Moegi, would you? I'm right, aren't I? So, what is that woman to you exactly? This is so funny, bro. Look at you, not even one, and having relationship drama. That's crazy. But yeah, she then shouts, answer me, Konohamaru, and she seems to be using her clothing to encase around him. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens next month. We then skip over to RYU and the squad, and he says, ah, I see. Use the Thorn Soul bulb as bait. That's some super smart thinking. We then see that the bulb itself just leaves his body, like no problem at all, and he's totally fine. It doesn't need to be inside him for him to be alive. Now I do wonder if they can use it to resurrect the person and the Shinju still remains alive, or is it that the Shinju will fade away once that is done? Of course it could go either way, we'll see. But yeah, the bulb then flies into the sky, and we have this idiot, of course, Yodo, saying the Thorn Soul, and she looks really angry. And Raya then says, now then, let's see if they bite. And that's when Araya notices Yodo about to take off, and he tells her no, but she does it anyway and tries to go after the Thorn Soul bulb. But just before she's able to grab it, she then stops mid-air and she's like, what the? I can't move. And Ryu starts to laugh and says, gotcha. I thought this might be the case. We then skip over to Mitsuki and he's also frozen and he's like, he's not as dumb as he acts. That's just like a backhanded compliment. That's crazy. But yeah, the same thing applies for RYU and Sarada as well. None of them is able to move. Now Sarada then notices that it's RYU's iron sand which is covering their entire bodies. RYU then goes on to say, that is so low. Dear Shinobi friends, your betrayal is gonna give me some serious trauma. I think you need to be punished. And of course, this is what everyone predicted was going to happen. Them betraying the Shinju leads them hating humans, which they don't do at this point in time. So this is somewhat on Shikamaru because of course this is his plan guided by Kashin Koji. But of course the plan failed because Konohamaru couldn't keep his mouth shut and also Yodo being a child. So yeah, that's it. So yeah, Ri then uses the sand to control Sarada's body and has her pull out a kunai and then charge towards Yodo. Mitsuki then figures out what's going on and says it's the iron sand. We're all being manipulated by it, just like puppets. But just before Sarada is able to slash Yodo, something stops her. And she goes on to say that I'm back in control. The iron sand was dispelled. We then get the last panel of RYU with his sword cloaked in iron sand. He then says, Lodestone Sand Sealing Blade. Shinki, I never thought I'd have to use this jutsu that I created for us in this way. Shinki, will you lend us a hand too with this battle? RYU then says, what the heck, that's so not fair, and that's where the chapter ends. Now I did say in the spoiler video that I did think that he was using the iron in their bodies to control them, and it somewhat reminded me of the scene from X-Men where Magneto used the iron from the guard's body to control him and then to attack him. But that doesn't appear to be the case here because he's just using the iron sand outside of their bodies to literally move their bodies. And it's a bit crazy in the sense that he's doing it in such a precise way that he's able to like control Sarada's body to the minute detail to pick up the kunai and then to go and attack Yodo. So I don't know, that's just an insane level of control. But yeah, it's definitely a neat ability. With that said guys, that is it for the video. Let me know if you liked it down below, and also check out my video I did yesterday on why Shibai killed Kage. So yeah, with that said, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.